It's a management philosophy. We acknowledge the fact that we create value in our organisations via those cross-functional business processes. So we're working across the organisation, not up and down, to deliver value.
Welcome to our show on Talk with Legends. Process management is not new for us. For some of us, we are directly associated. For many of us, we are more directly associated with process management. Despite of having a strong knowledge of process management in the organization, our experience is there, but we quite often hear about the challenges like what is the value of process management in business growth or a value to business. In order to answer these questions, we know that certain challenges are there because not all aspects are considered when we are looking at the process management, or we focus more of our efforts in the area which are less critical to the organization. So to answer these questions, we look at the concepts like 7 enablers to ensure that we have the right system in our organization. We look for the concept like Tregear circle to prioritize what matters most to the business. We'll look towards the active process management to understand the process behavior. Governance system, for that we refer the guideline like Office of BPM. In addition to this, we refer various forums, conferences like globally recognized webinars like BPM of BBC for BPM or IRM UK conference for BPM. Now, these are the good conferences where we get a lot of knowledge about business process management. We read books like Reimagining Management, Process Pioneers, Process Percepts. If I may ask you, what is common among all of these? And the answer is Mr. Roger Tregear. Mr. Roger Tregear is an author of more than 4 books. With more than 50 years of experience, more than half of his years of experience, 25 years of experience is exclusively into business process management. Other than the author or the speaker to these international forums and the webinars and the conferences, he's also mentor, advisor, consultant to the Fortune 500 companies, as well as the leaders of these Fortune 500 companies. Today, we have Roger Tregear, and I'm very fortunate to participate in one of the conference of Mr. Roger Tregear, where I still remember one of the delegates asked to Roger, Roger, what are the 3 things that you will guide us, you suggest us, if we would like to have process mindset in our organization? And Roger's reply is still there as an echo in my mind. And Roger said, if you want to have 3 things to focus on in your organization to have the process mindset culture in the organization, I would advise 3 things as communication, communication, communication. And all more than 1,000 people in that conference room, I still remember smiled with that such a simple and powerful answer of this. That's one of the things I have always seen in Roger, how the complex system problem can be understood in a simple way. This is what makes a person legend. And Roger is here with us. This is such a pleasure and honor for us for our today's talk on Talk with Legends. Mr. Roger Tregear, thank you so much for giving your time. It is a pleasure to have you today.
Thanks, Emmett. It's great to be here. And that's a nice reminder about communication, isn't it? So you're doing your piece here to help us communicate the messages, and there are many messages, of course, many different perspectives. So I guess we'll talk about that. But yeah, it's great to be here, and thank you for your kind words. I'm blushing with all the things you've just said, and feeling very old.
So, but very experienced, I would say, Roger. Thank you so much. So, Roger, in this session, actually, we have collected some of the questions from the different process pioneers, I would say, the practitioners of process management in the industry. We discussed with them what are the questions they face every day, they hear a lot, and the compilation of those questions that I would like to discuss with you. To start with this, the very first question, very basic question, is to discuss about what from your perspective would like to know, what is business process management? How do you see business process management?
Start with the easy questions first, huh? Well, I mean, it's the most important question too, isn't it? Because it actually means different things to different people. So I'm always keen to kind of establish what we're all meaning by these things when we start. Um, and for me, I mean, I use the term business process management or BPM. My preferred term, though, would always be process based management because I think it says what I mean by it. And I mean it's a management philosophy. We acknowledge the fact that we create value in our organisations via those cross functional business processes. So we're working across the organisation, not up and down, to deliver value. And we identify those processes and we work out what good performance would look like, and we do what we need to try and optimize that performance. So you know, for me, business process management, you know, for some people, of course, BPM is a piece of software, or it's just about modeling, or it's about process improvement, or it's any of these aspects, and they're all important. But for me, the fundamental is that we're going to manage our organisations by identifying and managing the set of processes by which we deliver value, which is to say the set of processes by which we execute our strategy. So for me, that's what BPM or process-based management means, and all of the other things are important. Of course, they are, but it's other people deal with them, not me.
Roger, you rightly said we have also experienced business process management is quite often considered as a digitization or an automation. And we are seeing a lot of technology-driven systems are promoting and are implementing in the organizations, and organizations are having digitization journey or digital strategy, as I would say. In this kind of an environment, what is the role of business process management? Do we see any support of BPM in digital journey?
Well, of course, I mean, digitization and IT solutions and other innovations are, of course, fundamentally important for all our organisations, but they don't. I mean, I'm not the technologist, but I appreciate that it's important. What I see, though, is IT and all of its variations. That's one way to improve the performance of a process. Obviously, a very important way, and none of us, even in my tiny little micro organisation, couldn't survive without technology. We're using pretty sophisticated technology right now. You know, we can't live without it, and it makes a big difference in our lives and needs to work well. And any time in almost any organisation we're talking about process improvement, there's probably some piece of technology involved somewhere. But I like to think about it like that. You know, the point of the exercise is not IT, it's about the better performance of processes. And if we can do that with technology, then that's obviously a good thing to do. But we still need to manage the process. It might be easier to do. It might happen in a nanosecond rather than a week, and it makes it, you know, it's no longer a process that's high on our list that needs a lot of management. But processes don't disappear just because we, you know, get rid of some analog step and digitize it. And even in an organisation where we might think we've pretty much digitized everything, we're still interfacing with other organisations and customers and stakeholders and regulators and all sorts of people, suppliers who haven't achieved that status. So, you know, I doubt there's an organisation anywhere that is absolutely 100% digital. We still have to interface. So it's a way of improving processes. All of the IT and related matters are a way of improving processes. Important way, can't live without it, but it's still about process performance at the end of the day, not about just IT.
Roger, like you said, process performance is what everyone is responsible for, or is everyone is interested in, whether you do it digital way or non-digital way. But processes exist everywhere. But in an organization, when we look at it, there is a group of team or group of people who are responsible for bringing digital journey in the organization, automations, and all such kind of stuff. And then there is another group of people who is responsible of defining business processes, right? So quite often the question comes up, who's responsible for this business process management? Uh, who's responsible? Who are the team who should take care of business process management? Who should be involved?
Yeah, so our organisations are full of subject matter expert groups, and it's not just the digitisation team. There's also finance and HR, and general IT, and procurement and legal. All of these people are there because they have specialist knowledge, and they're there as a service to the rest of the organisation. And I think process is part of that, as is project management, as is risk management, as is audit. So these are all the kind of pieces, the service units that exist in our organisations. But none of those units do everything by themselves. HR, when you talk about recruitment, to take a simple example, that's not just HR. Obviously, HR has some key role to play, but there's a hiring manager. There might be external agencies involved. There's certainly candidates. And then when you're onboarding the new hire, then all sorts of people get involved, don't they? To facilities and security and IT and all the rest of it. So we have specialist groups, but I think it's never the case that they're doing all of the work in that particular area. So they're the sort of internal experts, the smallish group that support everyone else. Now I think it's got to be the same for process management and process improvement, process-based management. If you say we've got a central group,
Mm-hmm.
and whether it's 5 people or 50 people,
Mm-hmm.
and you say they're going to do all of the process work,
Mm-hmm.
so they'll do the models, they'll do the analysis, they'll run the process improvement projects, and they do all the process work, and that group is unlikely to be, it might be closer to 5 than 50, because that's an expensive thing to do. If they're successful, what you've done now is just set up a bottleneck.
Mm-hmm.
So, you create what I always like to call the Office for the Prevention of Process Improvement.
Mm-hmm.
Because they can help, certainly they can do it, but they're busy for the next 6 months. So, you're not going to see them. So, and also the experts in our processes are out there executing them right now. It's not like some group in a BPM Centre of Excellence knows everything about all the processes. They don't. In the same way that IT or digitisation can come in and bring those kinds of tools to the improvement of business operations, they have to ask about the processes, don't they? They have to ask, what is it we do here? It's not digitisation, it's not magic. So I think yes, you certainly do need some centralised support group, and I think that doesn't need to be huge. And I think their role is to raise the capability of the rest of the organisation. It's very similar, if you like, to some implementations of project management, where you've got a project management office, where they're there to maintain the method, maintain capabilities out there, maybe test those capabilities, maybe even accredit people, do some quality control, but they're not there in most implementations anyway. They're not there to run every project because they just couldn't. There'd be too many projects running. So they're the central experts to pull it all together and make it happen. But as I think the mindset for them should be that their main job is to raise the capability of the rest of the organisation in doing process work. And then I think we can raise that capability across the whole organisation, and then people can start doing it. And I would say, if for the processes involved, the process of process management, the ones that Centre of Excellence, BPM Centre of Excellence may well be managing, I would, obviously that needs to be measured and managed the same as any other process, and I would always like to see a KPI for that group that had something to do with the number of process improvement projects that are being successfully run throughout the organisation without the involvement of the central group. I think that's what we need to be shooting for, rather than just have a bunch of process nerds in the middle of the organisation who do everything, because that will very quickly become a limiting factor, and that's not what we want to do.
So, Roger, is this business process management, is it only limited to a large organization, or it is applicable to small organization, or any specific type of organization where you think it fits in?
I think in theory it's not limited. I am an organisation of one, and on my website you'll find my process architecture.
Mhm.
Now, I don't want to pretend that there's an enormous amount of effort goes in my organisation, or the same level of effort that would be in a large organisation, obviously not. But I'm very conscious of the processes, and I do look at them from time to time. Um, so I think anyone can be doing it. It depends how you go about doing it, of course. If it's going to be massive overhead, then it's not going to happen easily in a small organisation, or a large one for that matter. But if it's streamlined and the process of process management is working well, then I think it can apply to any organisation, because the reality that we create, accumulate, and deliver value across our organisation in those cross-functional processes, and thereby execute our strategy, that applies to every organisation, whether it's got one employee or hundreds of thousands. It's the same. So I think it can apply anywhere. Obviously, there are economies of scale the larger you get in an organisation. But even in small and medium organisations, we don't have any problem having specialist accountants, specialist lawyers, specialist IT people. And we need to get process into the same mindset, I think, because it's how we get stuff done. Why wouldn't that be important?
And as you said, Roger, just in my last question, that having a centralized group specialized into process management becomes a bottleneck for the organization. So even a small organization surely require a very structured approach of creating, as you said, creating, delivering, accumulating value to the business. Having a specialized group in an organization will not be feasible for them. So everyone's involvement is essential if anyone would like to achieve BPM.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, in a small organisation, the centralised group might be one person,
yeah.
or half a person. Just someone who's got more expertise and is there to be a coach and a mentor and to help out. They've just got a bit more experience than others. And I think you can make an argument that if the central group is actually successful in raising the capability of the rest of the organisation, you can almost make the argument that the size of that central group should diminish, not get bigger. There are some things you do need to do centrally, just maintaining methodologies and maybe some quality assurance on some process work, etc. But I think it's possible, if you've got an organisation with a very high level of maturity in terms of process-based management, and I think it's possible to see an organisation that doesn't have a central group, in fact.
So Roger,
because everyone, but this is like maturity level 5 stuff where it's kind of almost disappeared.
okay. So having these roles, responsibilities defined within the organization that you just shared, what is to be expected from the organization as a whole or from the small group. This is one of the challenge that we have seen in the organizations, where the entire focus is on a central group to work on the process management. And I'm sure you have experience with many organizations. So can you also share about what type of other barriers, the challenges that you have seen on process management, on implementing business process management in an organization?
Yeah, so I think the most important thing, is to actually, for the organisation, to have a very clear idea about why they would want to even start. I think the most important question is, what's the problem we're trying to fix? what's the compelling reason for doing this? There is no organization on the planet that's got a problem called we don't have enough process models. That's not a business problem. That's not a business problem. It might be a solution to some problem, but it's not the problem we're trying to fix. So if we've got performance issues, if we've got opportunities to seize, if we've got competition in the market, we need to know what the compelling reason is.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is fundamental, and it's got to be known top to bottom, left to right in the organisation. What's the touchstone we're going to come back to? Because if we're just starting and we want to make some headway in process-based management, to be actively managing high-impact processes, then we've got to. It's going to get harder before it gets easier. It does need to get easier. We need to be a solution, not a new problem. But we've got some things to achieve to get there, and we've got to be able to come back to some touchstone to say, hang on, this is why we're doing it. It's important for these reasons. And that'll be different for different organisations. And I don't just mean it's about saving money. Yes, everybody wants to not waste money, but it might be about making the most of technology. It might be making it a great place to work. There might be all sorts of reasons, and it's got to tie in with the strategy of the organisation. What are the key strategic issues? So I think we just need to really understand what it is we're trying to do and be very clear about that. And that's not, a 1 hour meeting with the chief executive. It's lots of meetings with the chief executive and all the other chiefs. And a good test of that, I say to executives, you need to be able to give this presentation, not just listen to it. And because they need to be able to take it forward. So actually knowing why you're doing it in the first place, if you're not clear about that, then you're going to come unstuck down the track. And then I think, it's kind of exciting. You put together process architectures and you get it going and you start managing a couple of processes, but there's a sort of enthusiasm fade out if you're not careful. You need to push through that. And then the really big issue, of course, is that you've got to be delivering benefits. And I like to talk about proven, valued business benefits. So benefits for the business, valued by the business, and proven with objective, reliable data about which there's no dispute. If at the end of the day, if you can't say customer satisfaction has improved, sales have gone up, costs have gone down, our relationship with the regulator is massively improved. If you can't have some business value that's been delivered, at least in part through process work, then what are you doing? When you say, okay, let's have a review of our process work over the last 12 months, if you find yourself saying things like, we've produced 200 process models and we updated the architecture and we've got 83 KPIs defined. If you start thinking that that's an achievement, then you're missing the point. Because if that's all you've achieved, you've just become a new problem, not a solution. You'll need to do those sort of things, but you need the things you've delivered have got to be about the business, valued by the business. You've got to have those managers and others, executives and staff out there who are saying, gee, this process stuff's made a big difference. My life is easier because of it. It's got to be like that. We've got to be pretty tough on it. Because if we're not delivering those sort of benefits and be able to prove that we're delivering them, or at least contributing in a very material way to their achievement, and by our own definitions in process, we are what we would call waste. And should be eliminated, which would be a little embarrassing. So I think, why are we starting in the first place? So what's our compelling reason? Why we even want to do this? And we're not just doing it because someone's read a book or someone thought it'd be a neat idea. We really need to have some solid, well thought through, embedded reasons. And then we need all the methodologies and all of that sort of stuff, but pretty quickly we need to be delivering, proven, valued business benefits.
Mhm.
And the timetable is not 12 months. I would always say to someone, I don't know what the actual timetable is, it might vary in organisations, but I would think that if you say, yeah, we're going to start now and in 12 months' time we'll deliver some value, I think you'll have a problem.
Mhm.
The attention span of the organisation, is probably more like 3 months than 12 months.
Mhm.
Um, if all you are is someone who drags people into workshops, process improvement workshops or modelling workshops or something, and they start trying to hide from you, then it's not working.
Mhm. So, Roger, you're talking about the business values. Everyone should start with thinking about what value it should deliver to the organization, to the business. But I'm also quoting from one of your book. You said value is created um, in a horizontal way, cross-functional, right? Whereas when we look at an organization, they are always structured into a department, into a functional level, into a vertical way. So, how do we make a balance in between the horizontal value creation through the vertically organized organization?
Yeah, and I think this is important because one doesn't replace the other. I think I talk about this as my kind of first principle of process-based management. I call it the primacy of process, and it just says that we have both of these perspectives. We've got the vertical or functional perspective that's characterized by the org chart. Important, even organizations that tell you they don't have an org chart can draw it for you if you ask them to, because we need to know who the boss is and who our team is, and we do group people of like skills and like experiences, and sometimes that's a little more fluid in some organizations than others, but there is a functional structure for sure. Um, and nothing that I say about process makes any change to that necessarily. But we do know that we create, accumulate, and deliver value across the organisation. One piece of the organisation does one bit, and then someone does another bit, and someone does another bit, and eventually we've got some value, some product, some service, some experience we can deliver to an external stakeholder. And that's the only way it can happen in any organisation. Easy test for that. You think of your organisation chart, and can you identify a box on that organisation chart which by
Surely
itself
not. Mhm.
can do something?
No,
No,
no, no.
not the way org charts work. So we do need to have the horizontal and the vertical. Now, there's a big question that comes up, could come up, to say, okay, well, who's in charge?
Mhm.
So we've got the org chart and we've defined all of those authorities and delegations, and we know where the money is, and all of those kinds of things are defined, in line with the org chart effectively. So now we're saying we've got this horizontal management thing happening. Are they now taking over? We've got someone called a process owner or a process custodian or guardian or whatever the term might be in a particular organisation.
Mhm.
So who's in charge? Is it the functional manager who's executing part of the process, or is it this new process governance mechanism, the process owner? Well, I think the simple way of doing that is to simply say that nothing about functional management changes at all, and that process ownership is about just providing a management add-on with a process owner it's about influence, not authority. They don't have to approve anything. They're not taking over anything. They're just taking a cross-functional view of the end-to-end process or some cross-functional process, and saying how should it perform, and dealing with facilitating conversations amongst all of those executing managers. So I think they work together. And I think when you start, there are models which would say you move the authority of move it into the process rather than into the function. But I think you can run the risk, and I think that's complicated. That's a massive change to the organisation, to every role. But also I think you run the risk of replacing those functional silos with process tunnels. Because now we're just thinking about what's happening in this process and what about all the other processes. So I think we need, the vertical and the horizontal, and they work well together. And they're different. one's characterised by the organisation chart, and the horizontal's characterised by the process architecture.
Mm.
And they need to work together. And sure, that horizontal management is a collaborative form of management, but we're saying we collaborate to produce the value we produce. So if that's a collaborative effort, then perhaps the management of that effort also needs to be collaborative. We keep it simple and keep it straightforward, and it can work very well.
So I believe this requires is a little bit more efforts in terms of thinking vertically organized organization and managing it through the cross-functional. So any organization that opt for this change, they would surely discuss one specific question about what is an ROI that we expect from this business process management approach.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
So if I may ask you to share your thoughts on how do we measure, evaluate the ROI of business process management?
Yeah. And we must measure it as well, because it's a process. The process of process management should have KPIs and targets and should be measured and managed and improved. We can't say we're process practitioners, but we don't measure our own processes, or everyone else has got to do it, but not us. And I think we need to be pretty hard-nosed about it. So this is, I come back to my proven, valued business benefits. What is the benefit we're delivering? And it's not for the BPM team, the Process Centre of Excellence or whatever it's called. It's not for them to say what the benefit is. They've got a whole bunch of internal customers, maybe even some external ones, and we need to know what they think. And we need to be able to show that all of this work is delivering, actual benefits for the business, business benefits, not just we model 200 processes, but a business benefit, and valued by the business as well. We want those managers out there and executives to say, this is fantastic. You're doing it well when someone in a senior position who's been around for a while says, I got a lot out of that. I now understand this organisation better than I did before.
Mm-hmm.
And that happens when you get it right. So benefit to the business, valued by the business, and it's got to be proven, not just asserted. Don't tell me that customers are happier. I want to know how you know that. What's the customer satisfaction? Show me the trends.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me the prediction as well. If you know your process well enough and you're managing it well enough, I want us to be able to predict with reasonable certainty what's going to happen next month, not just report what happened last month. We need to know what has happened, of course, but the real joy is in being able to forecast what's going to happen in the next week, the next month. That's when you really know your processes, if you can do that.
Sure.
Reliably, of course.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. Roger, I heard about that you are one of the eminent speaker in the upcoming IRM UK conference. And one of the topic that you are going to present, you are going to share your knowledge about one of the framework, process framework, Malcolm Baldrige, if I remember it correctly, right? Okay, so I heard about the few of our practitioners like me who said we have seen an organization has already implemented many things, EFQM or Malcolm Baldrige or you name it, TQM or Lean or Six Sigma and all. So when we go and when we talk to those organizations, to the senior management, right? The senior management talk about these things are already implemented. So what is there as a BPM that you expect? What are the gaps in those organizations which can be filled? So can you share something onto this?
Yeah, so yes, we're talking, my colleague Lourdes Gonzalez and I are doing this presentation at the London conference, the IRM conference. We'll be doing it remotely, sadly. We miss our annual trip to the London BPM conference, maybe next year. So Lourdes is the business excellence expert. She's a Baldrige examiner in the US. So she'll bring that level of deep understanding about the Baldrige framework and, and other business excellence frameworks. Excuse me. So I don't have lots of background there, but she and I have been talking about this and looking into it and talking to others about it for quite some time, and doing some presentations to organisations who are deeply into Baldrige assessments. And certainly when I read Baldrige Framework or EFQM or any business excellence, National Excellence Prize documentation, I read all of that. I'm just seeing process all the time. And in all of those frameworks, some piece of it will be specifically about process. It's not as central as I would make it, but there'll be a piece about process and efficiency and whatever in there, and the management of all of that. But when I read it, all of the pieces of those frameworks, I'm seeing process all the time, because it's about having a known, proven way of getting things done in all sorts of areas. So I think it's just fundamental there, and the whole idea of cross-functional process management may not be happening even in an organisation that's got a very high level of business excellence framework. There's probably still some benefit to be gained. I mean, every organisation is going to be different, of course, but if you're actively managing processes and you're improving processes and it's all happening, then I don't care what you call it, of course, or what method. I mean, if it's working, it's working. Good on you. We don't need to do anything else. But I would test that idea. Just because you've got some level of business excellence assessment, some sort of qualification level, you might still ask the question about how we get work done and are we managing those cross-functional processes, because it's those business excellence frameworks most of them anyway, won't tell you in detail how to do something. They just say these are the kind of outcomes we need in these kinds of areas. So they need a framework. I mean, if you get down to, you mentioned some other lower level methodology things, obviously they do tell you how to do it, but EFQM or Baldrige or whatever doesn't say you've got to do any particular sort of process improvement methodology. They want to know that you have the ability to improve processes, and when the assessors turn up, that's what you've got to demonstrate to them. So I think, for me, everything that happens in an organisation is about making sure that our processes are working at an optimal way and they are delivering the value we promise in our strategy. So for me, process is at the centre of everything. Not everyone sees it like that, okay? But even then, when I read about business excellence approaches, it's clear to me that it is about process. You can search through those documents as I've done and find how often the word process occurs, and it's perhaps not that often. But if you then go back and talk about, how they talk about, I don't know, some aspect of procurement or recruitment or staff development or market development, it's a process. And when you talk to people in the business excellence world, they agree with that. So yes, if everything's happening, if processes are working well, they're being improved, everything's going well, okay, that's fine. Call it whatever you like. I don't mind. But just test to see whether you're actually managing and continuously looking to improve cross-functional business processes, because you may not be.
So whether any process framework, any methodology or a standard, what works best for your organization, and it is happening consistently, standardized way, that is what you're saying is recommended to continue with this.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, I mean, and I have a particular way of doing it, but there are many ways of doing these things. I think it's, you started out talking about mindset, and I think it's the mindset. We deliver, we create, accumulate, and deliver value across the organisation chart. Okay, are we managing that? No. I mean, the org chart says nothing about who's in charge across, or nothing of a practical level. It might say the CEO or the COO is in charge of everything, but that doesn't help on a day-to-day basis. So the way in which we create, accumulate, and deliver value across the organisation is not being managed. Does that sound like a good idea? Not to me.
So Roger, is there any kind of a traits, any kind of properties, attributes that you have seen in an organization which you feel is ready to have a concept like business process management in the organization? So, or they should, whatever they are doing, it's fine, they can continue with this. So anything when we are saying architecture, like you said, architecture is in one of your explanation, you talked about it. So this particular aspect is important to the organization and it is missing. So do you see any kind of a trait that can help an organization to find out, hey, yes, this is what is missing and this is where it makes sense for us to look for the BPM as an approach?
So I think where this works best, the sorts of things that you need to have, you certainly need to have senior executive involvement and support commitment. These things often start bottom up or middle out, but it's about executing strategy. So it has to ultimately you need it to be happening top down. So you need that kind of executive support, but not just there. I've been in organisations where we had enormous executive support, but when you got to the middle managers who far outnumber the executives, it's just nothing's happening because they don't see it, they don't have time for it, it hasn't been explained to them properly or whatever. So lots of great activity up here in the executive suite, but when you get down to middle management, it's just another thing, and nothing much happens. At the same time, I think at the lower levels of organisations, in org chart terms, out there at the real coalface, the operational levels, people know that processes should be improved. They can easily give you a list of things that don't work very well, and they can probably tell you how to fix them, but no one's asked them. So I think we need that kind of management, consistent management support across the organisation if it's going to work. And you also need an organisation that really, really wants to find things to improve. We all put our hand up for continuous improvement. You'll find it in lots of strategy documents or related documents. Everyone thinks that's a great idea. But to be able to do that, of course, we've got to be continuously finding opportunities and problems. And you don't often see a commitment to continuous problem finding in anyone's strategy. It doesn't sound quite so nice, does it?
True. Yes.
And continuous process improvement is all about every day people looking to find fault with the organisation, finding a way we can make something happen. Is there an opportunity to use some new technology or do something different? Is there a problem we've got, or we can see it emerging? Performance of something is deteriorating. And the last 3 times we looked, it was heading in the wrong direction. So we can be pretty sure when we measure it next month, it's going to be a problem. So let's do something before that. Now, so there's lots of very targeted measurement, and people delighted to find some opportunity that's either idea driven or problem driven, an opportunity to make a correction. I often jokingly ask people how often in their organisation they have a celebration because someone's found a new problem. Nobody ever has. No one's ever said, yeah, we do that all the time. We have a cake or something. That doesn't happen. But we do have a celebration because we fixed a problem, don't we?
Okay, that's true.
And you hear that phrase. I don't know if it happens in your world, but there's this kind of management mindset, I think, that says don't bring me problems, bring me solutions. And we kind of know what that means, I suppose, but I think we should be saying, bring me problems.
Mhm.
Give me a list. Give me a list of 10 problems. We'll talk about which ones we need to fix and in which order. That's what we're talking about, not we all do our status presentations, don't we? And we say everything's going well, everything's fantastic. The monthly report, yep, fantastic. Down the back of the report, there's a section that's future challenges or something, which is a bit that should have been up the front. Here are the problems. So we need organisation. So we need that management commitment, that kind of enthusiasm and a bit of excitement about it all. We need to be delivering value, but we need the organisational culture and mindset that really, really, really is keen to find things to fix. We need to be getting better at. We want our aim in life has got to be to get better, um, and fix problems, not just hide them, not just patch around them, but leap in and get something fixed. Yeah.
Roger, since you are a mentor, advisor, consultant to the many business leaders, in fact, the Fortune 500 companies, it will be a pleasure to hear from you when you talk to the senior management, to the C-suites, right? And you discuss with them the need for the business process management. What are those things that excite them, that brings their attention, their focus towards having a concept like BPM in the organization is a necessity?
Yep.
So, what
So
do you
so
think?
so, so I'll come back to that question specifically. Generally, I maybe you have this experience as well. Perhaps we all do that. When you're talking to anyone about process, there's kind of three types of reactions you'll get.
Mhm.
One is blank stare, no idea
True.
what you're talking about,
True.
and you persevere for a bit, but really the best thing to do is to shake hands. Thanks for the coffee. I'm out of here. Right?
Mhm.
Some people will never ever get it. Some people, their eyes light up and you get it. And if you're talking to an executive when that happens, that's fantastic. They don't quite know how to do it yet, but they just understand that this makes sense. Yeah?
Mhm. Mhm.
Not so many of those either.
Mhm.
So most, and then everyone else, there's a graduation, I suppose, from the blank stare to the excitement. But most people are saying, okay, well, yeah, I hear what you say. It sounds logical. I don't quite know how we're going to make it work, but keep talking. Okay, that's the goal, I think, when you first think, you haven't been thrown out. A bit of light in the eyes to say, okay, yeah, that sounds okay. Keep talking. Now, I mean, when I'm talking to an executive for the first time about process or trying to explain what I mean by process-based management, I just talk about that vertical and the horizontal. And I ask that question, it's pretty simple. I ask this question about, is there any box on your org chart that by itself can deliver value outside the company? No, of course not. That's not the way it works. So we get stuff done across the company. And so, okay, so we've got these, what we would call a cross-functional process, or at the highest level, an end-to-end process. Yeah, understand that. That's good. Yep. So who's managing that? Well, we've got all of the managers, so nobody's managing it. Right? I mean, do you have KPIs for that whole process? No, we just got it for the bits. So how do you know
Mhm.
the whole thing's working? So I mean, it's that kind of conversation, and you know, So if you can get to the point of saying the way in which we create, accumulate, and deliver value or execute our strategy is not being managed by anyone, does that sound like a good idea? I mean, pretty certain the answer is no. Um, then you've got to be able to say, okay, how are we going to do this? Because it might then sound like we want to make a massive change. We want to reorganize the whole place, and it's going to be terribly disruptive and it's going to be expensive. It's going to take forever. And if that's the mindset they've got, then I call that the world peace problem. Everyone thinks world peace is a great idea, but we don't know what to do about it, and certainly not this afternoon. It's just too big. Okay, but it doesn't need to be like that. So we take couple of months only, put together 3 or 4 levels of a process architecture. We pick a few processes, we start managing on literally just maybe 3. Start with the active management of those, and and see how we go. Deliver some benefits, get better at it, do more and more processes. We're never looking to manage all of our processes in that detailed, active way, because that's, there are thousands of them. It's not going to happen. So it's just our high impact processes. Many organisations would find themselves just actively managing, maybe it's just 20 or 30 processes, those ones that really have an impact, if they work well or not so well. So I think it's you need to make the case in that kind of theoretical way, and I think the theory is pretty straightforward. Every organisation works like this. The executive doesn't have to agree that we get work done across the organisation. I mean, that's a fact. It's just a fact of every organisation on the planet. It's the way things happen. Processes are happening whether you believe in them or not. The only thing that's optional is whether you're going to actively manage them. And then once you can get that idea across, then you need to be able to follow up with a relatively straightforward, simple, incremental, agile, dare I say, way of achieving that and rolling it out through the organisation and delivering benefits pretty quickly. No more than 3 months from the start. I'd want to be able to give a presentation to the executive to say these are the proven valued business benefits delivered so far. Otherwise, the attention span wanes and did somebody say communicate? That's what it's all about. And
True.
One of the things you've got to communicate, perhaps the main thing, is success.
Mm-hmm.
This stuff actually works.
Great thoughts, Roger. If I may ask you the last question of the session, if any organization is planning to implement business process management, what is your guidance to them? What do you suggest to them? What they should take care of before they start or they are continuing their BPM journey?
So I guess just to pick up from the sorts of things we've been talking about, have a very clear understanding, make sure it's a shared understanding about why you're doing this.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's fundamental. And just because the chief executive says it's a good idea is not good enough. It's a great place to start, obviously, but there's got to be lots of conversations about this so people know what it's about and what it's not about. When you talk about process improvement or process anything in most organisations, process change, then a lot of people are going to be thinking of, people are going to get sacked, headcount reductions and whatever. Organisations have got form in that area, so we need to be careful about that. And it may well be something that's going to happen, but it's not about that. It may not even happen at all. So we need to be very careful about how we present that. We're talking about pretty significant change of mindset across the organisation, so that doesn't happen overnight. We've got to think all of that through. And the way that I go about it then, once we know why we're doing it, is to actually produce the process architecture, just maybe 3 levels, top down, not bottom up, never, top down. Start with the strategy, vision, mission. What is it we promise? And I would literally go through a vision and mission statement with a highlighter pen and look for the verbs, because they're going to give us some indications of the sorts of things that we're promising to our stakeholders, which is what strategy does, isn't it? Vision, mission, it's a promise to our stakeholders. And then we've got the architecture and we've been building mindset and capability all the way along, and now we're going to pick just a few of those, maybe just 1 or 2 or 3 of those processes and say, okay, let's set the process KPIs and targets, cross-functional process. Let's set up some process governance, some mechanisms for improving, collect the data, and find the opportunities for improvement, problem-driven or idea-driven, and make life better and deliver it, prove it, and make, I think the goal should be, just think about the impact. What if this was true in our organisations?
Mm-hmm.
What if the process by which we improved our processes was the thing we were best at? So the best process, the most efficient and effective process in our organisations was our process of process management and improvement.
True. True.
I mean, that would have a profound effect, wouldn't it? The thing that we were best at is getting better.
Mhm.
Who wouldn't want to do that?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And it's not so
Absolutely.
hard.
True. Wow. Mhm. Roger, as always, a great session. Got a lot of good insight. Of course, as a legend, hear a lot of things from you. Some good clarity about the concepts. Some good ideas. But I made my few notes, which surely I'm going to use it for our second session with you. I got some. It creates more curiosity about what else I can discuss with you. I don't think there is
Yeah,
an end for this.
yeah,
But
yeah.
of course, the time is limited. And thank you so much, Roger, for your time. I truly enjoyed this session. Learning from you is always a pleasure. So thank you so
Thanks,
much
Emmett.
for
Yeah, it was a
coming on the
great session.
show.
I've enjoyed our conversation, and obviously people will be able to contact you if they have questions, and I'm easy to find out there, and I
Mhm.
love interacting with people. If you've got questions or comments, or you think it's a whole load of rubbish, please contact me. Let's talk about it. I love it.
True, absolutely.
Anytime. Thanks, Emmett.
Wonderful. And reimagining management is one book I always swear to anyone. This is one of the best book available for business process management. It's not theory; it's an absolute approach that explains how to implement BPM. Thank you so much, Roger, here with us today. Look
Okay.
forward to talking more. All right, take care.
Thanks, Emmett.
Thank you. Thank you so
Thanks.
much.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.